Today's Mass readings and Gospel reflection. November 4th, 2020. Wednesday of the 31st week in Ordinary Time. Memorial of St. Charles Borromeo, Bishop. Today's saint was born in a castle to an aristocratic family. His father was a count, his mother a Medici, and his uncle a pope. This last fact was to determine the trajectory of Charles Borromeo's entire life. Pope Pius IV was the brother of Charles' mother. At the tender age of 12, Charles received the external sign of permanent religious commitment, the shaving of the scalp known as tonsure. He was industrious and extremely bright, and received advanced degrees in theology and law in his native northern Italy. In 1560 his uncle ordered him to Rome, and made him a cardinal at the age of just 21. Even though Charles was not yet ordained a priest or bishop, this was brazen nepotism. But in this instance, it was also genius. The cardinal nephew was a man of rare gifts, and his high office afforded him a wide forum to give those gifts their fullest expression. At the Holy See, Charles was loaded down with immense responsibilities. He oversaw large religious orders. He was the papal legate to important cities in the Papal States. He was the cardinal protector of Portugal, the Low Countries, and Switzerland. And, on top of all this, he was named administrator of the enormous Archdiocese of Milan. Charles was so bound to his Roman obligations, however, that he was unable to escape to visit Milan's faithful, who were under his pastoral care. Non-resident heads of dioceses were common at the time. This pained Charles, who would only be able to minister in his diocese years later. Cardinal Borromeo was a tireless and methodical laborer in the Holy See, who nevertheless always found ample time to care for his own soul. When Pope Pius IV decided to reconvene the long-suspended Council of Trent, the Holy Spirit placed Cardinal Borromeo in just the right place at just the right time. In 1562 the Council Fathers met once again, largely due to the energy and planning of Charles. In its last sessions the Council completed its most decisive work of doctrinal and pastoral reform. Charles was particularly influential in the Council's decrees on the liturgy and in its catechism, both of which were to have an enduring and direct influence on universal Catholic life for over 4 centuries. Charles was the driving force and indispensable man at the Council, yet he was still just in his mid-20s, being ordained a priest and bishop in 1563, in the heat of the Council's activities. In 1566, after his uncle had died and a new pope granted his request, Charles was at last able to reside in Milan as its archbishop. There had not been a resident bishop there for over 80 years. There was much neglect of faith and morals to overcome. Charles had the unique opportunity to personally implement the Tridentine reforms. He had played such a key role in writing. He founded seminaries, improved training for priests, stamped out ecclesiastical bribery, improved preaching and catechetical instruction, and combated widespread religious superstition. He became widely loved by the faithful for his personal generosity and heroism in combating a devastating famine and plague. He stayed in Milan when most civil officials abandoned it. He went into personal debt to feed thousands. Charles attended 2 retreats every year, went to confession daily, mortified himself continually, and was a model Christian, if an austere one, in every way. This one-man army for God, this icon of a counter-Reformation priest and bishop, died in Milan at the age of 46 after his brief but intense life of work and prayer. Devotion to Charles began immediately, and he was canonized in 1610. St. Charles Borromeo, your personal life embodied what you taught. You held yourself and others to the highest standards of Christian living. From your place in heaven, hear our prayers and grant us, what we ask for our own good and that of the Church. First reading. A reading from the letter of Paul to the Philippians. Philippians chapter 2 verse 12 to 18. My beloved, obedient as you have always been, not only when I am present but all the more now when I am absent, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For God is the one who, for his good purpose, works in you both to desire and to work. Do everything without grumbling or questioning, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine like lights in the world, as you hold on to the word of life, so that my boast for the day of Christ may be, that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. But, even if I am poured out as a libation, upon the sacrificial service of your faith, I rejoice and share my joy with all of you. In the same way you also should rejoice and share your joy with me. The word of the Lord. Responsorial Psalm. Psalms chapter 27 verse 1, 4 and 13 to 14. Let our response be, the Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is my life's refuge. Of whom should I be afraid? The Lord is my light and my salvation. One thing I ask of the Lord, this I seek, to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, that I may gaze on the loveliness of the Lord, and contemplate his temple. The Lord is my light and my salvation. I believe that I shall see the bounty of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord with courage. Be stout-hearted, and wait for the Lord. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Gospel reading. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Luke chapter 14 verse 25 to 33. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me, cannot be my disciple. Which of you wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost, to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation, and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlooker should laugh at him and say, this one began to build but did not have the resources to finish. Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down, and decide whether with 10,000 troops, he can successfully oppose another king, advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, every one of you who does not renounce all his possessions, cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord. Before we proceed with the video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, please hit the notification bell, so you won't miss out when we release new videos. Feel free to share your comments, suggestions, and reflections at the comments section down below. Thank you and God bless. Now, let's proceed with the video. The reflection on today's Gospel. The Gospel today speaks about discipleship, and presents the conditions for being a disciple of Jesus. Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem, where he will soon die on the cross. This is the context in which Jesus speaks about discipleship. An example of catechesis. The Gospel today is a beautiful example of how Luke transforms the words of Jesus into catechesis for the people in the communities. He says, great crowds accompanied him. He turned and spoke to them. Jesus speaks to the great crowd. That is, he speaks to all. To the persons of the communities at the time of Luke. And today he speaks to us. In the teaching which follows, Jesus gives the conditions for those who want to be his disciples. First condition: to hate father and mother. Some reduce the force of the word to hate and translate it as to prefer Jesus to one's own parents. The original text uses the expression to hate one's parents. In another place, Jesus says one must love and respect one's parents. How can this contradiction be explained? Is it a contradiction? The force of the word is typically Semitic. Matthew uses the terms loves father or mother more, which shows the meaning of hate is rather to love less. At the time of Jesus, social and economic conditions led families to become self-contained. This prevented them from fulfilling the law of ransom, or liberation, which calls one to help one's brothers and sisters in community who were in danger of losing their land, or becoming slaves. Closed in upon themselves, the families weakened life in the community. Jesus wants to reconstruct life in community. This is why he asks to put an end to the restricted vision of the small family. He asks the family to open itself and be united to the larger family of community. This is a sense of hating father and mother, and wife, sons, sisters and brothers. When his family wants to take him back to Nazareth, Jesus does not sympathize with their request. He ignores or hates their petition and extends his family, saying, "Behold, my mother and my brothers. Anyone who does the will of God is my brother, sister and mother." The familial bonds of union cannot stand in the way of the formation of the community. This is the first condition. Second condition: to carry the cross. No one who does not carry his cross and come after me can be my disciple. In order to understand the importance of this second requirement, we have to look at the context in which Luke places this saying of Jesus. Jesus is going toward Jerusalem to be crucified and to die. To follow Jesus and to carry the cross means to go with him up to Jerusalem to be crucified with him. This recalls the attitude of the women who followed and served him when he was still in Galilee, and many others who went up to Jerusalem with him. This also reminds us of Paul's statement in the letter to the Galatians, "But as for me, it is out of the question that I should boast at all, except of the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom the world has been crucified to me, and I to the world." Two parables. Both of these parables have the same objective, that people may think hard before making a decision. In the first parable, he says, "Which of you here, intending to build a tower, would not first sit down and work out the cost, to see if he had enough to complete it? Otherwise, if he laid the foundation and then found himself unable to finish the work, anyone who saw it would start making fun of him, saying, 'Here is someone who started to build and was unable to finish.'" This parable needs no explanation. It speaks for itself. Let each one reflect well on his or her way of following Jesus and ask themselves if they value the conditions before making the decision to become a disciple of Jesus. The second parable, or again, which king marching to war against another king would not first sit down and consider whether with 10,000 men he could stand up to the other who was advancing against him with 20,000. If not, then while the other king was still a long way off, he would send envoys to sue for peace. This parable has the same purpose of the one before. Some ask, how is it that Jesus uses an example of war? The question is a pertinent one for us who today know wars. The Second World War caused the death of about 54 million people. At that time of Jesus, though, wars were similar to commercial competition between enterprises, which nowadays struggle among themselves to obtain the greatest profit or gain at the expense of the other. The conclusion is only one. To be Christian, to follow Jesus, is something serious. For many people today, to be Christian is not a personal choice, and neither is it a decision for life, but a simple cultural phenomena. They do not even think of making a choice. Anyone who is born a Brazilian is a Brazilian. He who is born Japanese is Japanese. He does not have to choose. He is born like that and will die like that. Many people are Christians because they were born so, without ever choosing their faith. To be a Christian is something serious. I have to think out well my way of following Jesus. How does this take place in my life? To hate one's parents, community or family. How do I put these two things together? Am I capable of harmonizing them? Yahweh is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? Yahweh is the fortress of my life. Whom should I dread?